Hey, Jason, I should be online here now. It says I'm online.
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Roll call. Rick Raleigh.
I'm here remotely.
All right. Amanda Buchanan. I'm here. Maria Akpara.
I'm here.
Renee Longshore.
Here.
Anita Tucker.
Here.
The following was posted on the June 12th, 2025 board agenda. Notice to the public, board member Rick Raleigh will participate via teleconference from 18190 O'Brien Mountain Road, Lakehead, California, 96051. The teleconference location is open to the public during public session, and any member of the public has an opportunity to address the board from the teleconference location in the same manner as if that person attended the regular meeting location. All right, and now, Anita, will you lead the Pledge of Allegiance for us?
Hand over heart, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Kylie, do we have any public comments pertaining to closed session?
We do not.
All right. We have no cards for public comment. Mr. Raleigh, do you have any cards or anyone wanting to do public comments?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. All right. Let's go to, so next we are going to go into closed session to discuss the following. Number one, pupil personnel, expulsion cases EXP number 27, 2425 through EXP number 30, 2425. Annual review case AR number 16, 2425, and the expungement of expulsion case SDIP number 4, 2223. Number two, conference on litigation. Government Code Section 54956.9A, current litigation, 8 cases. CIV SB 2220303, 2314073, 2322171, 2412359, 2412687, 2321161, CIVVS 2400289 and 2500223, Government Code Section 54954.5C and 54956.9 D2 and E1, anticipated litigation, 1 case, 2024-25-01. Item 3, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, reassignment, transfer, leave, title, certificated and classified employees. Number 4, public employee appointment, resignation, retirement, reduction, title, certificated and classified employees. And number 5, security matters, Government Code Section 54957, consultation with Apple Valley Unified School District Chief of Police. Can I get a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So that's Maria Akpara for the motion and Anita Tucker on the second. We will be taking a vote via roll call. Mrs. Tucker?
Aye.
Mrs. Longshore?
Aye.
Ms. Akpara?
Aye.
Mr. Raleigh?
Aye.
And myself, Mrs. Buchanan, aye. All right, so we will be back at 2 p.m. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting back to order. We'll start with roll call. Rick Raleigh.
I'm here.
All right, Maria Akpara. Renee Longshore. Here. Anita Tucker.
Here.
And myself, Amanda Buchanan. I am here. Maria, will you lead us in the pledge?
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to board comments. Anita Tucker.
Good afternoon. I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to Mrs. Nelson and her team for their quick action coordinating with our first responders to provide shelter for our families and community during the dangers faced due to the fires in Apple Valley. I'd like to additionally thank Principals Heitman and Laxo and their teams for their quick work in opening up their campuses to provide shelter for our families forced to evacuate and for our first responders. And I know you work long hours to support our community, and we truly appreciate your dedication and support, and all district staff who work to help make that possible. This is our last board meeting of the year, the fiscal year anyway. This semester seems to have flown by. I'd like to take this time to thank our hardworking staff, classified, certificated, administrative, and wish them a wonderful summer break. I'd also like to thank our students, families, and community for their hard work and support this school year, and to wish them time to rest, rejuvenate, and recharge to be ready for the next school year starting on August 7th. Thank you.
Thanks, Anita. Renee?
Good afternoon, and thank you to everyone who's here today in person and online. It has been a year full of learning and growing, and I'm sure that, like me, you are really looking forward to summer break. With the recent fire in Apple Valley, I know Trustee Tucker extended her thanks to our first responders. My heart goes out to the families that were affected. Kudos to Superintendent Trinae Nelson and staff who stepped up in a big way to help facilitate a quick response in order to properly support the people of Apple Valley. I want to thank Principal Smith and Assistant Principal Garcia at High Desert Premier Academy for being so generous with your time. It was wonderful sitting down with both of you this week and hearing about the wonderful ways you're pouring into the lives of students at High Desert Premier Academy. We are so fortunate to have you both as leaders in our district. I would also like to follow up on a public records request I submitted on May 29th. I reached out to Mr. Conrad concerning the report. It extends July 1st through February 12th, 2025. I am asking today that I can get a complete report with full data set, actually through today, which is June 12th. And I'm going to make a motion to have that come before the board to give permission for that.
We wouldn't make a motion on that right now.
My hope is that one day I will not need to seek permission from my fellow board members to obtain what I need to be an informed decision maker. That when we as individuals making up a board, bringing up questions and concerns, that they are answered and attended to, not evaded or dismissed. That our questions won't be seen as anything more than what they are, which is an attempt to understand and duly lead. And when information is delayed or denied, it concerns me. I look forward to the day when we can work alongside each other in full transparency, proud of all we accomplished and how we got there.
Maria?
Thank you so much. I don't have very much to say except to say thank you to our families, and thank you to the parents and the children who've made it possible for us to sit here and service them. And thanks, a huge thanks to the students and the teachers and all of the staff that have made it possible for us to also sit here. I am filled with gratitude, and I'm truly, truly humble in knowing that people have put their faith in us to be able to serve them and to be the voice for their children. My hope is that when we return in the next academic year, that we will be better than what we were this past year. Growth is important, and I look forward to growing alongside our students. Thank you to the rest of the board members who continue to come in here and go through all the documents that the district gives us to read to be prepared for this event. And as we wrap up this academic year, I wish you all nothing but good health. And I pray you are safe in everything that you do this school year, this rest of this school year, so that you can come back healthy to tackle what lies ahead. Again, thank you so much for your time.
All right, thank you. For my board comments, I wanted to start by just thanking everyone for their understanding and flexibility in allowing me to miss our last meeting in order to chaperone my daughter's last elementary school field trip. I can't believe I don't have any more elementary babies at home. But as a parent, I mean, you know how important those moments are. It was a lot of fun, and my mom got to come too, which was even better because she is visiting from Tennessee right now. I know a lot of you discussed this at the last meeting, but graduation season was absolutely beautiful this year. I know many of you shared that last week. Each ceremony was thoughtfully planned out and unique to each site because each site is its own, has its own culture. And so it was neat just to see those differences night after night. I was also honored to attend the 8th grade promotions at Phoenix Academy and Sitting Bull Academy and watching those 8th grade students ready to move on to high school was a very proud moment for their families and staff. I'm going to go ahead and echo what a lot of you already said and just take a moment to thank our district and site leadership teams who are always willing to step in at a moment's notice, whether it's to assist other districts that are being evacuated, or in this case, our own town. So it was very nice for the assistance with the Red Cross and opening our campuses in those times of emergency. We did see CAL FIRE at dinner last night at my husband's birthday dinner. And so we were like, oh, thank you. So we figured it was wrapping up if they were there having dinner. And then finally, it's just been wonderful to see so many of our hardworking staff members enjoying some well-deserved summer fun. I love seeing all the travel photos from Europe and other destinations. It's really great that our staff is taking advantage of their summers. So I hope everyone continues to enjoy this time to rest, recharge, and explore, and that our cabinet can finally rest and recharge and explore, hopefully. Thank you again to all of our staff and families for everything you do, and I am looking forward to the next school year. Rick, your turn.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I just want to echo everybody's comments on thanking everyone for the hard work for the Red Cross, et cetera. And then thanks to you, Amanda, for stepping up and running the meeting, the last one of this school year. So I appreciate that. And so that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Superintendent's comments.
I would like to thank Colette Rozon. I know we mentioned the principals, but as a risk manager, whenever there's a crisis in the community, that's who the initial contact is. Sometimes I get contacted by Sheriff's Department or Apple Valley Police Fire District. But it's Colette that has the initial contact from the Red Cross and often the county. And so It doesn't matter what time of day it is, where she's located. If she is within driving distance, she is wherever we need her. And so a huge shout out to her and the relationships that she has built. I mentioned to at least one board member that this past week, as we deal with crisis, we can quantify relationships that have been built because we have the ability to just pick up the phone and call. We had ASAP programs. We had a need for shelter for firefighters and a location for a setup for emergency operations center. And so just people being able to call each other's cell phones is incredible for a community. That isn't always how it works. So we are thankful in Apple Valley that we have those relationships. The center that was set up out at Mariana Academy for CAL FIRE and the other agencies that we're supporting, including Apple Valley Fire District and the Sheriff's Department, did finally shut down today. And so Colleen went out and made sure everything was secure along with the custodians there. Matt will be meeting with CAL FIRE as they've requested, just in case there's charges or anything, and they are working actively to put into place some kind of an agreement so that we don't have to go through other processes in the future. And then as requested last week during the board meeting, we do have 8 certificated management retirees and 10 classified management retirees as of July 1. That's so it's inclusive of our current retirees, which includes based on the management guidelines, those who receive fully paid benefits. They had to have been hired prior to June 30th, 2012, and the benefits either term at age 65 or 70 based on the length of service. So there's a shift constantly as somebody hits the term of it for total number, but we are currently at 8 certificated managers and 10 classified managers who are retired. Also, I will be bringing a contract forward for the August board meeting for discussion action from California School Boards Association. Their recommendation based on some requests have to do with beginning with a training called Good Beginnings. That would then transition into a governance handbook review and finally a self-evaluation process. So that'll be at the desire of the board to whether to approve it or not, but I will bring it forward. And then at your seat, let's call it summer reading. There is a binder with our board policies and administrative regulations from Educational Services. This will provide you time to have some think time and be able to review those policies. The policy updates will be on the August 4th board meeting for the first reading, and then during the second reading for the board policy, you'll also see the administrative regulations following up in September. So there's not a ton of them, but this just means you're not having to spend a ton of time in August right before the board meeting. So they're there. And then I also just appreciate everybody that has been working with kids this year and behind the scenes and getting everything accomplished that the school district does, classrooms, maintenance and operations, all the way nutrition services, all the things that go on every day. And so I'm very appreciative that everybody's getting a break, and I hope that the board also enjoys a break. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I will go ahead and read out any action taken in closed session. On a motion by Maria Akpara and seconded by Renee Longshore, the Board of Trustees approved the following. Appoint Brian Webb as Assistant Principal, Elementary, Rio Vista School of Applied Learning, Range 7, Column 5 on the Certificated Management Salary Schedule, 205 base duty days effective July 1st, 2025. So, welcome. I'm going to move on to the adoption of the agenda. The board may approve the agenda as is or add and or pull items from the consent agenda for discussion. and/or action. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second. We will be taking a vote via roll call. Mrs. Tucker,
Aye.
Mrs. Longshore,
Aye.
Ms. Okpara,
Aye.
Ms. Buchanan, aye, and Mr. Raleigh.
Aye.
All right. There's no recognition or presentation at this meeting, so we will move on to the discussion information. Number 1, equitable access across high school campuses. And this was Renee Longshore's item.
Yes, hello. I will try to make it quick. I do have a spreadsheet because it's my jam. I'll pass that down before I begin. I wanted to continue our discussion about equitable access across our high school campuses. Last time I spoke, I had another spreadsheet, and I have extra copies of that if anybody would like it. This new spreadsheet specifically is looking at the data I received regarding inter and intra-district transfers. It is color-coded and has charts. 241 students from Granite Hills High School were denied transfer to Apple Valley High School, and 41 from Apple Valley High School to Granite Hills High School over the past 4 years. These numbers do not take into account the many who had requested and been denied prior to 2021 and never requested again because they saw the dead-end street. I was one of those parents, raised 4 children in Apple Valley, and not one of them has attended our schools. I wanted to decide, even if that meant transferring them to another district. I had the means to do so, and so I did. VESD and HUSD, though 2 currently attend AAE. I wanted my children to attend Apple Valley High School. Its program suited their interests. We even put in an intra-district transfer application for our youngest daughter to be part of its 24-25 FFA program, which was denied even though the program was not impacted. Our current policy does not allow students equal access to programs. Where you live determines your access. This concerns me greatly. I know many of my constituents feel the same way. The CTE programs at Apple Valley High School brought home 40 of our 45 awards. Some are zoned for Apple Valley High School and feel that Granite Hills High School is better suited to meet the needs of their young adults. Either way, shouldn't we as a board listen and take steps to ensure equal access? How the intra and inter-district transfer requests have been structured in our district has allowed for great discrepancy. Apple Valley students are being denied transfer between campuses, while students from other districts are let in. Even children of staff working in our district are being denied. If we are, quote unquote, proudly preparing our students for their future with dignity, authenticity, community, and service, doesn't that include providing equal access to all AVUSD has to offer? I'm tired of being told that because I live in a certain area, my kids can't attend a certain school. Prioritizing intra-district transfers would allow for student-parent choice. Open enrollment will help foster equity across our high school campuses. Today, I ask you to consider both of these as we continue to strive to meet the distinct needs of our community.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Longshore?
I do. My question actually is not quite a question. The question will come with it. I do have our board policy on, it says 5116.1, a board policy. And actually, I wasn't even looking for that board policy until somebody sent me a message, and I decided to go looking at that board policy. Our board policy is very clear. It says that there are priorities to enrollment. So when I sit as a board member and I'm looking at those priorities, I do believe that there are some instances where you might find students who are getting the transfer because their families has been part of a transfer process and they've already entered as district. Um, their siblings already entered our district, and so to keep them, the family together. So when I look at that, it is talking about it in number 4 of the district policy. It says any sibling of a student already in attendance in that school is allowed to come in. Okay, so that may be a sibling before the board policy, that this board policy was last revised in May 5, 2022, that I have, because I don't like to speak out of turn, even though I have been a member of staff in Apple Valley for almost 40 years. So I wanted to make sure that I had what was the most current. So when a parent requested that information, I did pass the information to the parent, to the district, because I wanted to be sure that the information I was giving the parent was up to date and accurate. But in terms of intra-district, the district, it says the Board of Trustees desires to provide enrollment options that meet the diverse needs and interests of district students and parents and guardians, while also balancing enrollment in order to maximize the efficient use of district facilities. The superintendent or designee shall establish those procedures for the selection and transfer of students among district schools in accordance with law, board policy, and administrative regulations. So as I sit here as a trustee, I have to remember what my role is. My role is definitely a what. My role is not about the how. So these are the things I want to see as a board member with the rest of the team, because there are 5 of us that have a voice. And it is up to the district to tell us how are they going to meet this information. I was a member of this staff in Apple Valley when Granite Hills was built. So I remember why Granite Hills, what their goal was, what they wanted as a school. Apple Valley High School, I still remember what they wanted as a school. And the teachers who were interested in going to the different schools had the option. My daughter was the first, she would have had the choice to go to Apple Valley, to Granite Hills, even though we lived in Apple Valley. But she chose not to. Her friends went to Granite. Because as far as I was concerned, my children's friendships should never impact the educational programs that I want for them. So I made the decision that she should stay at Apple, and she has weekends to have friends. And the rest of them, school had to happen. So when I think about the why and the how, the what and the how, of what I know for a fact as a board member and as a former employee of this district, what I know for a fact is that there are kids from the 2 different high schools, because we have 2 comprehensive high schools and 1 continuation high school that is centered in the middle, that poverty is not based on boundary. We have people who are poor on both sides of town. And so boundary is not the issue that I see that we are dealing with. In most instances, transportation could be an issue. Another instance is staffing could be an issue. So if we are going to have the exact same programs for the 2 different schools, the building has to fit what we are looking for. We do not have, as a district, when I look at the information that is given, we cannot build an FFA building in Granite Hills when we're talking about budget constraints. We cannot build a swim program at another school that doesn't have the staffing to be able to do so. So as a district, we need to pay attention to what do we have and how can we better utilize it. That is more important in terms of the discussions that I'm hearing. So when I look at the board policy, that's where I differ. And I differ in the sense that, there are two groups of students that we have to really look at when we allow for district transfer. If the student is a victim of a violent crime while in school, on school grounds, that's a condition for the superintendent. We are not telling the superintendent what to do. Because as a board, we need to remember our role. Our role is to be good stewards of public funds. And if we are going to be good stewards of public funds, we have to be careful about mandating things that the district has to do. Because when we mandate it, we are now saying, go and build Granite Hills campus at Apple Valley and build Apple campus at Granite Hills. It won't work. We're still a small community. We're still considered a town, not a city. So unfortunately, I see the numbers, and I'm not, I deal with numbers a lot, but when I look at the numbers, numbers doesn't look good, but we also have to look at the details, the unspoken details. There's an unspoken detail here. So if I'm going to have the equity that we're looking at, then we are going to have to put everything back in the pocket, in the box, and then say, okay, let's do it this way. We have a parent choice school. Are we now saying that parent choice school, we need to get rid of it? Because that was the whole intent of setting up that school, that the school has to be a place where a parent will have a choice to have their kid in. Unfortunately, when you have a parent choice, there's a lot of people that want to go there. And because there's a lot of people that need to go there, they are also not having enough, the capacity fills up. They have a capacity issue. And districts tend to pay attention. If you already have a child in a parent choice school, they are going to pay closer attention to it to make sure that extra child that is coming in comes at least at the top of the list, so that they will be considered in the process. So I struggle with this, equitable access. If I lived in Apple Valley and my child is denied education, I should be more interested in what education my child is getting at the school that they are located. So I should be looking at, is the teacher offering the instruction that I'm asking the teacher to do? Do I make time to go sit in the classroom to see if that is happening? Those are the things that are important to me. We all will not make it to the White House, but we like to strive to be there. So are we going to say, well, the White House is in Washington, D.C., but we need one in Victorville, we need one in Apple Valley, because it's an equity issue. So this has always been a struggle for me, and I'm going to rest my case because I seem to be going on and on. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
All right. Thank you for the presentation. I do think it's important to acknowledge that equity does not mean equality. And I also want to acknowledge that both Apple Valley High School and Granite Hills High Schools are both excellent schools, but they do each have their own unique strengths and committed staff serving their communities. We've revisited this topic multiple times, and I believe that the data consistently shows that our schools do offer equitable opportunities for students across the district. And while I understand the personal interests of the school placement that one desires, we do need to remember, much like Ms. Akpara was saying, that we need to be focused on policies that serve all students and maintain the integrity of our enrollment boundaries, especially as we manage capacity at our sites. And while there might be room in a program, that doesn't necessarily mean that there is room for all of the other additional classes that that student would need. With that said, I respectfully suggest that we consider this matter thoroughly discussed and addressed, and we shift our attention to the many other critical issues that impact the district and our business as a board. Our time and our energy are best spent on advancing initiatives that benefit every student, teacher, and school and staff member in Apple Valley Unified.
Madam President, may I add one more thing here? I know that you said.
I feel like I'm a sub. I'm not, the president's on the phone, but yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want us to think about, even if we did the same and a student says they want to come to, let's say Apple Valley High School to do the FFA, there are no guarantees that that student is going to stay in that program. So a student goes to Apple Valley High School and wants to do metal program or one of the CTE programs. And on those conditions, we have enrolled that student to be sure that they receive that service. And 3 months into the enrollment, the student decides to drop. We own that student. Now we own the student who is now taking the spot that they didn't mean to take, but it is a spot because they thought if we just say those words, we will create a spot for their child for that student to be there. But now he is taking a different course and he's not coming to school on time. I used to be the attendance person for the district when I was working in this district. The number one thing I thought about or I was instructed to make sure that I took care of is to check the attendance of the student in their home school. If their home school shows that you haven't made it to school first period in the morning, then there is no chance you're going to make it to first period in the second. The next thing that we need to always consider when we are making these assumptions is transportation. If a child does not have a way to get to school in their home school because of financial situations, or maybe the parents have other work-related matters that they have to address and can't take their child to school, now we are allowing intra-district transfer that we do not, as a district, we do not provide transportation for intra-district. We do not provide transportation for inter-district either. So now that student is now having to worry about how to get to school from an area that is now further away from their home to make it to a 656 school. Apple Valley High School, the last I checked, they start school at 6:56 a.m. And in the fall months, 6:56 a.m. is very dark at night. So that child's not going to be working at night. The safety of our children is very important to us. So those are all the little things that I think as a superintendent or as a cabinet must process to know how do we manage all of that. So assuming that we are able to transport the kids from Granite Hills to Apple and from Apple to Granite Hills, assuming we can do that, if that student has to do sports, who is picking up that student from that school of record that is now about 10 miles? We have a huge radius of our school district. Picking up that child to be able to make it home safely. That's our number one priority, the safety of our children. So all of those things need to be in play when we have those conversations. I don't have anything else to say.
May I add something, Madam President? I think with either inter-district or inter-district, if the student is accepted, it's the parent or student's responsibility to make sure that they have the transportation to get there. So I think by applying, they're saying, I have this transportation to be able to get there. I know that it would be wonderful if all the schools had the same programs, but I understand spacing and the cost for additional classrooms and staffing can maybe provide, that's maybe a concern as far as costs. I feel sad if a student is really wanting to do the FFA because I know there's not very many schools in our high desert that do that, Lucerne Valley, Serrano, and Apple Valley. So that's kind of, it's sad, but then again, I understand how difficult it is to start another program and the expense for that as well.
And if I could just add, we're talking about open enrollment. So the ability to apply, the ability to be considered regardless of your boundary. I know I started this discussion, I presented 2 databases to argue why it's an important part of equity in our district. While I understand that equality and equity are not the same thing, equity, I would like to argue, may be more significant. I would like to propose that possibly, even though this is not the way it has been, maybe I always hear, well, we've always done it this way. To quote my favorite movie, just because it's the way it is doesn't mean it's the way it should be. And I would like to propose the idea of possibly opening it up to community response and input so we can hear from the people we serve and they can give their viewpoint of this matter. I do also want to point out that the high schools are roughly 15 minutes apart. So as far as parents being able to transport their children between the 2 campuses, if this is something that they're interested in doing, I don't see harm in asking and then possibly opening it up for possibility.
Mr. Raleigh, do you have any comments or questions?
No comments or questions. Thank you.
Mrs. Nelson, any? No? All right. Thank you again. Item 2 is the local indicator presentation. Patrick Slosser. You've already got it up there. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got a logistical challenge here. Hold on. Okay. As you know, we're in the 2-step process of the LCAP hearing step last week, approval this week. Part of the statute for approval, however, requires that during this meeting, we also review the local indicators. And so we're going to go through that. Those of you who've seen this presentation before are going to say, did you copy last year's? The answer is yes. I keep this very similar year to year to be sure that we cover all of the necessary requirements. So remember this cycle. We are in a good spot right now. We're here to board approval. If approved, then it must by law be sent to the county within 5 days of approval. I will send it today if it's approved. The county has been working on this document, as I mentioned before. We are excited and hopeful that this document, once approved by our board, will then be quickly approved by the county. They put a gold star on the door of the LCAP approver. We want to be the first star on the door this year. So fingers crossed that we're getting close. Minor edits left, I hope, only. So the big ideas for today, as far as the local indicators, are that there's a particular set of state priorities that must be examined. There must be a system by which we gather information and report that data, and that we, I'll then put this data into our dashboard. It's actually sitting there from last year now. It is not to meet or not meet the standard is basically to make sure you go through the exercise of evaluating yourself. And so there's a transparency requirement to that. And the standards are these. It's the local indicators are priorities 1, 2, 3, 6, and 7. And we'll go through them one at a time. And so again, to meet the standard is to have a process by which we're going through and evaluating the information as required, and then reporting that to you. And so first one is basic conditions. It's got a couple of sub areas. One of those sub areas is the percentage of teacher misassignments. And so oddly, it's for the 22-23 school year. It's always several years behind. It's the way this data gets reported. And the reason it's kind of like this is because we do a lot of work cleaning that information up as the years progress. So it's not this school year that just finished. It's not even last school year. It's 2 years ago now. And so for that particular school year, the numbers here are posted. There's a kind of a bucket of categories that they call out of field, incomplete, and ineffective. We take issue with that term, but it's a state term. Has nothing to do with the impact or efficacy of the teachers. It's rather rude, I will say, and I would say to a CDE representative, because it just doesn't mean anything, but it does mean that they might be exercising outside of their actual field. And so we have to mark them as such. The way this gets reported publicly to the state and what sits on the California Data Quest website is the numbers I just showed you kind of strung out, and every district has the same one. And so that's that. Should we pause here? I'm so sorry. Did they not know we already? Yes.
I'm sorry. I am distracting, but I wanted Lindsay to make sure that they didn't have to wait, that Mr. Webb had already been announced.
Could we
And
clap for
so
him one
can
more
we clap
time?
for him one
Yeah.
more time? We have an audience. You guys, I saw you look at the agenda then and I thought, uh-oh, they think it's coming. You missed it. Sorry.
But you were here in spirit.
Yes.
Yes.
So thank you, Mr. Schlosser.
Absolutely. We're super happy too. Yes. A couple of the other conditions have to do with things that are on the school accountability report card. And again, some of these are for just last year. Some of them we look to whatever is most recent. And again, that's as long as that's consistent with our school accountability report card, or SARC. And so the other basic conditions are number of students without a Common Core state standard aligned textbook, and we reported 0. That's done in the September or October board meeting at sufficiency time. And then the final one here is deficiencies of any identified instances where facilities do not meet good repair. Again, this is locally defined. We have a very strict rubric that Mr. Hopper and the maintenance operations team utilize. They have an outside reviewer come and evaluate campuses strictly. We had one site that was a whisker. Mariana School was just a whisker from good repair. And of course, I'm sure that's been addressed by now. I know that this summer they're having some major projects, but again, we report this transparently. And so this year it was Mariana Academy just barely was in the fair category at like 89.3%. Instead of that, sought for 90. Oh, and so by virtue of measuring and reporting those metrics, we have met priority 1. Priority 2 is a self-reflection. We use option 2 in the state, which is a self-assessment by our leadership team to satisfy whether or not we have implemented the state standards. We go category by category through the content areas and determine, do we have proper training? Are we seeing, when we walk through classrooms, are we seeing utilization of the textbooks that we've adopted? Or do we have systems aligned well? Some areas are stronger than others. We know that, for example, we are in need of upgrade. And now that they've finally passed a mathematics framework, we can go about the business of adopting a new math program. And so that's an obvious area where we said we are in initial implementation because we're back in cycle. Like everyone, if districts are being honest, that's what they should put for this. So I'm going to police the rest of them. I'm kidding, but thank you for laughing. So high school mathematics, and then soon thereafter K-8 mathematics. You'll notice on the agenda, because we have Williams visits and the need to kind of bridge what we can't get access to anymore before we didn't want to hurry any adoption process. So we're going to adopt for the high school level an electronically available curriculum just for that August visit time as they go through the process of really evaluating what they think is a strong option. Priority 3 is parent input. As you know, parents are in every step of the process for us in LCAP development. And the District English Language Advisory Committee is part of that as well. They reported to you last week. They're a wonderful group. But more importantly, as you know, part of the process for each school site is reporting the type, frequency, and kind of the way that sites are interacting with parents, whether that's coffee with the principal or whatever things they do as they work with the superintendent in planning each year. We also survey our parents. It's an exhaustive survey. We get a lot of really good information from them. And luckily for us, priority 6 is required to have a survey. And so you're required to do a survey every other year. In order to meet this requirement, we survey annually in November. We use the Youth Truth Survey, and that data is so valuable for us. Both parents, staff, and students all participate in the survey. And here are the numbers. Really nice to see an increase in student survey participation. Family surveys up from the year before, but not up as high as 22, 23. So we'll be working on that. We like to get that number. Kind of our benchmark is maintaining over 10%, so hitting that 1,300 mark. But if we can get ourselves back closer to 2,000, we'd feel happier about that data. And staff, we're seeing great participation, and it continues to go up. So just makes it more reliable when there's more. And the survey categories for the Youth Truth Survey are these. It's generally that engagement, right? Relationships, culture, communication, and feedback. Thank you, Mrs. Nelson. If I'm needed to speak with the parent, I'll do that. If you would, if she calls for me, I'll step out. Okay. Here's a kind of a highlight of this. You heard all of this data in a general overview during the State of the District. What we saw, as you remember, is just great increase. Like all those positive trends, all those like higher levels of % positive engagement, a greater sense of safety at school. And that's not from just one group. That was from all the groups who reported. And so, we're hoping to see those trends continued. Most recently, however, we did, through a couple of other processes, look deeply at the data from the point of view of student groups, looking for discrepancies. Was there a particular student group, perhaps? Even though we automatically have to look at them as high school and elementary, and we reported that out separately. But now we wanted to look at them even by some of the ethnic groups or whatever was self-reported. Remember, it's anonymous, so it's not tied back to their student identification number. So there's no way for us to know whether or not that student is, for example, socioeconomically disadvantaged. But if they report their ethnicity, if they report anything about themselves, then it comes up, of course, in the data. And so it was nice to see that there really wasn't big discrepancy from the point of view of any student group. There was some at certain sites. And so principals were, glad to see that and know that they had some target groups who maybe felt a little less belonging, felt a little less connected. The other thing we did is we were tasked with looking at connection to school and some of the parent responses for students, families who had a child with a disability versus families who did not. And it was great to see that self-reported families with children with disabilities felt actually more connected to campus. If you think about that, it actually makes sense, right? They have an advocate at school. They're probably at school in a meaningful way more frequently. And so I was pleased that that was an option within the survey, and also pleased with the outcome. So priority 3 and 6, by virtue of our keeping parent input alive in our school climate survey, we meet both of those metrics. And then finally, priority 7 is a broad course of study. And so that is analyzed by making sure that we're using our intervention systems. We analyze transcripts, looking at grade distribution, credit recovery, on track for A through G, looking at target student groups to make sure that we're interviewing them, meeting with their parents, and getting that, it's really, that comes down to a scheduling choice, especially in 11th and 12th grade. Of course, the non-traditional campuses, those program options narrow a bit. I was just on the phone with Earl Smith about this today. They just don't have as wide an option for all the programs. They can't do that, and yet they still have wonderful outcomes. And so the priority metric is met by virtue of that work. Now I'm sneaking in something else. This isn't local indicators, but there's some data starting to come available. And I wanted to make sure at our last board meeting, I had an opportunity to share it with you. And it's apropos of the LCAP, I think, and the work we're doing. We've got some third grade reading score data that comes from iReady, and then also the CAS scores for 3rd through 8th grade and 11th, all aggregated. It's still in aggregate form at the moment, but ELA, math, and science over time. So let's take a look. This chart might be easier for you to see in the printout you have at your desk. This is a county document. They provide some really interesting data for us. If we participate in a data agreement with them, which we do, we can take a look at, for example, this is all 3rd grade. On the left-hand side, comparison A is Apple Valley Unified School District 3rd graders. Bottom, you can see 1,137 beginning of year BOY, middle of year MOY, and end of year EOY. And so those are the students who took our iReady assessment and their scores in a 4-point or a 4-column metric there. And so it's lovely to see, isn't it, that number of students in that below grade level group going down, and that that decreasing, and the other two groups kind of growing. Now, remember, this is a moving target. So it's understood that where you are 3rd grade year, month 1 is not the same place where you're expected to be at the end of 3rd grade. You should have moved, but this is still students who even beyond that are moving greater than that. And we know the students in those lower tiers need to move faster. Compare that with, on the right-hand side, the 24,000 students in the county who took the same assessment, and the percentages for those students who are at that lowest level. And it's really nice to see that our 3rd graders are doing great. They're stacking up well, and we're making good progress. It's a testament to, this is hundreds of students. In one grade level at a single campus, we know there's reading intervention programs, but they're not reaching every student. We know the 250 TK through 3rd grade teachers, they're reaching every kid. And this is the impact they're having. Super proud of them. And also really excited to see some movement. And that does show. Take a look at the language arts scores over time. It's really encouraging to see that for the last 2 years now, we've seen an upward trend in those scores. Now, again, that's a composite, 3rd through 8th and 11th. So this isn't just one grade level, this is all the grades. But their average distance from standard, that's the DFS. So they take every student's score, they look and see how far they were from what was the standard. And of course, we have some students who are far above standard, and we have some students who are below standard, and some who are right at standard. And so our average this year so far in the early calculation is just about 57.7 below. And so we're working our way back to that pre-COVID number of 26 points below. That's encouraging to see. And at this rate, with the work we're doing, I think we're going to be heading that direction quite quickly. Math, not as much movement. We know this. We have been really focused on language arts. That's been the gatherings we're doing. And where we put our energy, we've seen movement. We know we've got to work to shift this focus. We are constrained a bit this year as we come into this year with just the little bit less ability to do some of the work we've been doing, but we know we've got to get some strong adoptions in place and get moving in math, but we are still moving up. And we know that's probably growing because of increased literacy. Finally, science. Looking at the scale, the distance from standard in science is really getting pretty close, and it stacks up really well with local districts. I'll tell you, it looks more dramatic than it is, but if you look at the left-hand side, that's because the scale is only a couple of points. But we're moving in the right direction. It's great to see. Now, remember, this one is not 3rd through 8th and 11th. Science is 5, 8, 11. So we have met all 5 indicators. I will be putting the data into the system. It's due by August 1st. None of it gets published until I think November this year is when they're telling us the dashboard will be available, which is great because that would be sooner than normal, which allows us to maybe move our state of the district up a little earlier. So based on the early indicators, we think we have a lot of good to celebrate. So thank you so much, and I'll pause here for questions.
Great job. It's good to see growth in our students. Thank you for your presentation and all of that information. Is this a time for general questions on the LCAP?
This is a great time for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would anybody else like to speak before I have questions on the LCAP?
I just want to say thank you for putting this together. Thank you for the colorful graphs. It's really helpful. And that's exciting about our movement, especially with all of them going up. And we look forward to continued great success.
Thank you. We do too.
I have a quick question. Last year, when the LCAP was presented, we had a goal 6. What happened to it?
It rolled into the
Did
two
you roll
schools.
it into something else and now it's not there?
Yeah, let me speak to that. It was actually 2 years ago, and we had goal 5, English learners, goal 6, African American students. As part of the restructuring for last year's LCAP, we did take those items that were focused on those groups and put them back into the LCAP in goals 1, 2, and 3. And here's part of why. It was a matter of wanting to make sure we kind of simplified a little bit the LCAP, and it was advice from county to not have anything in there that really wasn't supplemental and concentration grant funding allowed. And our entire goal 6 was not allowed because of the way the state has written that law. That's just not a target group you're allowed to fund. It's only socioeconomically disadvantaged foster youth and English learners. However, you'll notice that mostly the spirit of that goal comes out in the fact that those metrics are called out explicitly. Looking with care at that differentiated assistance section, where we talk in detail about what we're working on with African American families and what the counties through Sharina Betters is helping us to do. So it's there in spirit, but it's not there as a goal. But I'll tell you, the group that makes sure that we don't ever stop the focus is the DLAC. That group has been so wonderful in our district advisory committee saying, yes, but don't you forget, you told us to remember to remind you, English learners, African-American students, and other groups who are, kind of disproportionate in their outcomes. We want to hear about them too. And so it's been a really good reminder to us to report data in all those ways.
So based on that, did we see any growth in data?
I can't break this data down yet that way, but as soon as I can, I will bring that to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Raleigh, did you have any questions about the presentation before we go to Mrs. Longshore for the questions about the LCAP?
No questions, but as always, Pat, that was a good presentation. You sure do your due diligence on this topic and convey it well to the board. So I appreciate that. So that's all I have, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Would it be best if I was somewhere where I had a copy? Are you going to refer to page numbers? I just want to be responsive to your
I
question.
could. I do have the page numbers here as well, but if you have a copy you'd like to refer to, that's fine. They should be hopefully not too complex.
Okay, I'll give it my best, and then if needed, I'll dive into the document.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I was noticing in goal number 2 on page 56, action 2.10, class size reduction.
Yes.
It said that we'll provide 40 additional certificated positions in order to subsidize the class size reduction K3. Given the general district attrition and this class size reduction, how many teachers are we planning to hire for the 25-26 school year?
The number of teachers here is based, so I don't know if it's going to be exactly 40, but the way we calculate this is anything that's above and beyond what's kind of provided to us, because class size reduction comes at a cost, right? And so although we may have slightly fewer classes in that grade range than we did last year, it's still, no matter what we do, there will be a cost to the system. And so we will true this as soon as we know the actuals, but we don't really know that until we kind of see students actually show up. We roster them, but we are anticipating a couple fewer, so we do see that there might be some sites who can go without a teacher or two at that grade level. But it's even as we look at pre-enrollment right now, it's tight and there's lots of combos. And so if we get to a point where we're over that 24, we will have to add. And so I can't speak to the number until probably our enrollment, unfortunately, rolls until about October is our peak. It's probably more like an October question.
Okay, great. So we're looking to go 24 students per teacher, K through 3, and then you could get back to me?
Yes,
that data?
and we have to be at that ratio or under as we average across the year. And we watch that monthly very carefully. And so those will also be provided to you in the enrollment report that comes out each board meeting. You'll look and we can go through this, but there's an average for every school site, every class.
So, but right now the projection is 40.
No,
No?
there will be
Okay.
more teachers than that in those grade levels. The increased cost is projected at 40, but I can't, like I said, we won't know that until we get later into the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. And my next question is on goal number 2, action 2.9. It looks for our reading and math intervention programs, the intensive tier, which I'm in full support of. I think it's important our students have that support. But our total funds from the last LCAP dedicated to that area was roughly $6 million in 23-24. It looks like we're projecting 12 million, above 12 million in cost.
Yep.
So it looks like it doubled in 25-26.
Huge increase in 2.9. Let me speak to that.
Okay.
We spoke at length about this with the district advisory committee as well. And this goes back to this idea, remember, of what is a base program and what is above base. And what we had not added to our, what we consider above base, is we have an awful lot of paraeducators in the system that are technically beyond what's legally required. So any legally required paraeducators who, again, they help with not just reading and math, but all kinds of other subjects, but they fit best in this goal. We have legally required ones. TK classrooms must have one. If it's a one-on-one called for in an IEP, they must have one. Mild mod or a mod severe classroom must have at least one. EL paraeducators, we've got to provide that program. Beyond that, however, there's folks in the system who are really above the base required program. And so we didn't add people, but we made sure that expense was properly attributed to this goal. And so that increase is almost all paraeducators.
Great, thank you so much. And then my last question, in goal number 4 on page 66, action 4.1, expanding counseling supports. It says the district will provide 1 additional counselor to each school. So how many new counselors are we planning to hire for the 25-26 school year?
Goal 4 is an equity multiplier goal that only applies to 2 schools. So it's not 2 additional, it's the 2 they've already hired, they're going to continue to fund.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pat. Kylie, do we have any public comments?
Oh, we do not.
Mr. Raleigh, do we have any public comments from the teleconference location?
No.
Board comments. Anita, do you have anything else?
No more comments.
Renee Longshore,
None.
Maria Akpara,
None.
I have none. Rick, do you have any additional comments?
No.
Okay, and Mrs. Nelson?
I just would be remiss not to note that we did leave at each board member's seat the information from Trustee Longshore's board item, the discussion action item from last board meeting with the budgetary information that had been requested.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to I, discussion action session. Number 1, approve the certificated and classified personnel actions as listed. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, we will be taking a vote via roll call. Mrs. Tucker,
Aye.
Mrs. Longshore,
Aye.
Ms. Akpara,
Aye.
Ms. Buchanan, I say aye, and Mr. Raleigh.
Aye.
Thank you. And to adopt the Local Control Accountability Plan, or LCAP, for 2025 and 2026.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? All right, roll call vote. Mrs. Tucker,
Aye.
Mrs. Longshore,
Aye.
Ms. Akpara,
Aye.
Mrs. Buchanan, aye. Mr. Raleigh,
Aye.
Thank you. And approve the wait. I need my folder. All right, so we do have a couple readouts. In expulsion case EXP number 27, 24, 25, to amend the hearing panel recommendations to read, be expelled to SBCSS Community School, Victorville Education Center for the 2025-26 fall semester and the 2025-26 spring semester. The student is to complete the terms and conditions of their rehabilitation plan prior to the end of the 2025-26 spring semester. Can I get a motion to approve the expulsion case number 27 as amended? I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
Seconded.
All right, any discussion? All right, we will be taking a vote via roll call. Mrs. Tucker.
Aye.
Mrs. Longshore.
Aye.
Ms. Okpara.
Aye.
Mrs. Buchanan, aye. And Mr. Raleigh.
Aye.
All right, we would like to approve the recommendation of the administrative hearing chairperson effective immediately on expulsion case EXP number 28, 2024, 2025. Can I get a motion
So moved.
and a second? I'll second. Are there any discussion? All right, we'll be taking the vote via roll call. Mrs. Tucker?
Aye.
Mrs. Longshore?
Aye.
Ms. Okpara?
Aye.
Mrs. Buchanan, aye. Mr. Raleigh?
Aye.
Thank you. In expulsion case EXP number 29, 24, 25, to amend the hearing panel recommendations to read, be placed on suspended enforcement of expulsion to High Desert Premier Academy for the 2025-26 fall semester and the 2025-26 spring semester. The student is to complete the terms and conditions of their rehabilitation plan prior to the end of the 2025-26 spring semester. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, we'll be taking a vote via roll call. Mrs. Tucker,
Aye.
Mrs. Longshore,
Aye.
Ms. Okpara,
Aye.
Ms. Buchanan, yes. Mr. Raleigh?
Aye.
All right. And finally, to approve the recommendation of the administrative hearing chairperson effective immediately on expulsion case EXP number 30, 2024-25. I'll go ahead and make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All right. Roll call vote. Mrs. Tucker,
Aye.
Mrs. Longshore,
Aye.
Ms. Okpara,
Aye.
Mrs. Buchanan, aye. Mr. Raleigh?
Aye.
All right, annual review case AR number 16, 2024-25.
Make a motion.
All right. I'll second. Any discussion? All right, roll call vote. Mrs. Tucker,
Aye.
Mrs. Longshore,
Aye.
Ms. Okpara,
Aye.
Mrs. Buchanan, aye. Mr. Raleigh?
Aye.
And finally, move to, or approve the expulsion case STIP number 4, 2022-23.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, roll call vote. Mrs. Tucker,
Aye.
Mrs. Longshore,
Aye.
Ms. Okpara,
Aye.
Mrs. Buchanan, aye. Mr. Raleigh?
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, adopt the Apple Valley Unified School District 2025-2026 operating budget. I'll move. Can I get a,
I'll second.
all right, any discussion?
I do have discussion.
Okay.
I do have spreadsheets. Yeah, I will be referring to the spreadsheet throughout my discussion points. I know there's a lot of data there, but hopefully I can lead you orally through being able to understand it. I'm going to vote to approve this budget because it is imperative that our staff get paid and our sites have what they need to properly prepare for instruction of students next school year. But I do so with serious reservation. Based on my review of our budgets, estimated actuals, and unaudited actuals, we are repeatedly shifting funds. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, a website of the U.S. government, AVUSD's total spending per pupil was 75.8%. Neighboring districts are spending up to 90% and have a solid reserve. When the board approves the budget, we agree to the planned spending for classroom and school site needs as determined by our staff. This can include anything from pencils and paper to fireworks at our amazing graduation events. We also consider compensation for staff, currently at 74% of total revenues, while the state recommended average is 83.5. In response to our staff's repeated concerns expressed at board meetings, I took a close look at our financial state as a district. In a general review, I noted places where data seemed to stand out and then zeroed in on those accounts. I have the spreadsheet that I passed down, and Kylie, I don't know if you got the extra 2 copies? Yeah, I have the copies here. Okay, so could you please pass those on to our CSEA and AVUDA presidents? It shows 4 categories of allotment and spending that I have been studying these past few months. In blue, you'll see books and supplies, services and other operating expenditures, capital outlay, and Fund 7000. In this report, I look specifically at the unaudited actuals for 21-22, 22-23, 23-24, because these numbers are an exact report of funds present at that time. You can see those in red. When compared over time, we can see the spending or accumulation of funds. You will see the yearly remaining total for the 21-22, 22-23, and 23-24 school years, and the AB 1200, which is the most recent projected data presented to the board, listed in blue. The pink and green highlighted sections represent projected subtraction and addition of funds to that account. The yellow sections represent funds that were placed specifically in unrestricted and restricted accounts. The blue section represents both the fund name and the total projected amount in each of those accounts as of May 20th, 2025 in our AB 1200 report. You can see that duly noted in blue at the bottom at $72,282,927. Keep in mind that the 23-24 unaudited actuals, that's the money that actually exists, are in red. At the bottom right above that, you see $55,676,859. Those are our total encumbered funds as of the 23-24 unaudited actuals. The 25-26 budget is listed Right below that, at $51,393,748. So you can see a difference between the unaudited actuals in red, the AB 1200, which is our most recent projection, and this budget that we're looking to pass, the $51 million roughly. Money has been shifted and stored over time while a narrative of deficit spending is written. I will not give quiet consent. I will not be shamed, bullied, or silenced. We must work towards supporting current day students with current day funds. We must be transparent. I'm greatly anticipating FCMAT's review. I would personally like to meet with a representative who is involved in the audit. I believe as a board, we were elected to provide safeguards for public funds. I want assurance. The people want assurance.
A couple things I just want to mention. When you bring these spreadsheets to us at the meeting, they have not been made readily available in advance to the public, as they should be posted with the agenda. But I hear you say you will not be bullied, you'll not be, all. The only one I feel like I see bullying is you with your comments each time, and the constant questioning of the people that are hired to run the district. It's not our job to meet with FCMAT. It's not our job to direct Kylie to do something. Kylie's not our employee. We have one employee, and that's the superintendent. And I can't direct her to do anything on my own, nor can you. And I understand that you are hitting your head against that wall regularly, but I feel like you would do better to work within all of us as a board, because you have to work with us. And if we're united, we can get things done. But I feel like meeting after meeting, we are constantly coming back to more spreadsheets that you have, more statements you want to make. And then you're constantly saying that you've done another Freedom of Information Act. That's not how we do things in Apple Valley. And I understand you're saying, well, maybe it's time to change, but we don't change something just because one person does not like it. It's hard to figure out what your issue is when everything seems to be an issue. So that's where I am. Is there any other comments or?
Well, I definitely want to address the accusations that were made against me. As I am looking at data, I'm seeking truth. Things that I'm being told, I'm not seeing in data. My presentation of the information is not only to my board members, to the administration, to the public. I'm doing my job. This is what I was elected to do. I am not fighting. Bullying would be calling names. Bullying would be putting people down. I am not doing any of that. If I'm doing my job, being informed, sharing data, and I've been on this board 6 months trying to discover what's true, how many hours I've poured into this, not for myself, but for the benefit of the board, for the benefit of each one of us that brings one vote to the table. It is not done for any other reason than in service to this community. I'm doing my job, and I'm not going to stop doing my job I'm bringing information. This is a skill set I bring to this board. It's up to you and every other member of this board to decide what they're going to do with that information. I've never tried to act on my own. I understand I am only one voice. But as long as I'm alive, I will speak to issues that are important to me. I will speak up for the community I was elected to serve. And the job I do here is in sincere service to all of them.
Can I say something? The question I have is gonna be directed at the Assistant Superintendent Business Services. Because this has to do with his department. Do you know anything about this spreadsheet?
Ms. Okpara, I received the spreadsheet at the same time you did.
Okay, thank you. So having said that, I think the district should be able to have access to this information so that we'll be better informed. And I do realize that Trustee Longshore had this information to us as information. But we do have a vote that we need to render. But without the information that you now just got, it is really hard to have a vote that is non-additional. So, Mrs. Nelson, is this something that we can hold? We can't hold, can we? Because we have to pay people on July 1st, correct?
That's correct. If you don't approve a budget, then we don't move forward with anything to the county, and therefore we don't have any operating budget.
Okay, so let me ask this question then. We approve the budget now. The business services now has a spreadsheet. They go and compare with their spreadsheet. Can they do a modification or whatever it is that they have to do and just continue till we can at least continue to run the district until they get this modification in place, if there is a modification?
Remember that this is a budget adoption. It is a living document that adjusts in the budget cycle.
Okay.
So while some information has been provided to us, that doesn't mean that changes that budget. What it means is that we have been provided information. So the adoption of a budget will go to the county if the board approves it, and then the county will likely put comments and return it with some expectations, meaning just what Matt said last time during the board meeting, that in the out years, specifically the 26-27 school year, we would have to be looking at approximately $5.8 million worth of cuts if everything stays exactly as we have budgeted based on the May revise. We're not even budgeted on an actual state budget because that doesn't come out until later in June. So that's why we do a first interim and we adjust at that point. That's why we do a second interim, unaudited actuals, all of those different events that go on a budget cycle. So we will, if the board approves the budget, it goes to the county and it then becomes part of the cycle. So it is a living document that does change over time based on things that are encumbered, actual costs, all of the things that represent that living document.
Thank you.
Mr. Raleigh, do you have any comments or questions?
None at this time, thank you.
Okay. All right, well, we will be taking a vote via roll call. Mrs. Tucker?
Aye.
Mrs. Longshore?
Aye.
Ms. Okpara? Mrs. Buchanan, aye. Mr. Raleigh?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees consider approving a number of agenda items as a consent list. Consent items are routine in nature and can be enacted in one motion without further discussion. This procedure conserves meeting time for a full discussion of significant issues. Consent items to be approved in one motion would be 1 through 33. Can I get a motion? Okay, which items would you like to pull?
I'd like to pull items 9, 11, 25, and 25 to 28.
All right. Does anybody else? All right. So I'd like to move to approve items 1 through 8, item 10, items 12 through 24, and items 29 through 33.
So moved.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Oh, Rick can second. Any discussion on those items? Okay, we will be taking a vote via roll call. Mrs. Tucker.
Before we do the vote,
Oh,
and I apologize, can you repeat the ones we're not voting on right now?
9,
9, 11, and
11.
25 through 28.
Okay, thank you. And I.
Mrs. Longshore,
Aye.
Ms. Alcara,
aye.
Mrs. Buchanan, aye. Mr. Raleigh.
Aye.
Okay. Maria, which one would you like to discuss first?
I'll start with number 9, so I'll go in the right order. Number 9 is the approval of Zena Blosser. Is it just for one school? Because I see Sitting Bull. I used Zena Blosser when I was a teacher, so I'm just wondering why the other schools are not jumping in on it.
They may. Sitting Bull is kind of wanting to pilot it. They had a couple of teachers who brought it forward, and we are cautious not to do anything without bringing it forward for full adoption. And so we've got that small grade level. They want to use some Title I funds and do it as a supplemental. But if the data looks good and we see some progress, we may see some expansion of that.
Thank you.
Okay, you want to discuss number 11?
Then I go to number 11, Professional Tutors of America to provide compensatory services for Office of Administrative Hearing, and it's an exact case number. I'm just wondering what the profession, if those people are qualified. I did work for professional tutors, so I do know about how relaxed they are about qualifications. So I want to be sure that we have really qualified people who will meet that case.
I'll address that. As you are aware, when there is a administrative hearing and that is specifically identified, we don't really have a way to go back and say, this is not what we want to offer because it's been through the OAH process. So you publicly have said your concern, and at least that has gone on record.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Number 25 to 28, those are legal services with law firms. And you notice that I did not add number 24 because it was, the law firm is specific about what service they will be offering. Then my questions for law firm number 25, 26, 27, and 28. What do you have in terms of how quickly they are able to service our district when we have a need, and their turnaround when we have a need? And do we need to go knocking on their doors and begging them to get the information out to us?
Yeah, as you're aware, it is very different based on each of the legal firms. We utilize the majority of time with Margaret Chichester, who is a very quick return when we're dealing with HR issues for Dustin Conrad's office. And when I say quick turnaround, if there's an emergency and we need it, she provides support within 24 hours, even if it's written documents. We're not quite sure how she pulls that off because it's a very small law firm. The legal services with Adkins and Andelson, it's very dependent on what the service is and which partner or attorney is providing that information. We do often have to ask for documents to be completed or get a timeline of when they will be completed. There is, we currently are working with them having to do with student discipline processes, and based on some discussions that we've had with the board over time. And while we had primarily utilized Dora Dome's law services for that, she's still on here, though she is retired. She does present occasionally, but we have been working with Adkins and Andelson to update our current student discipline procedures, trainings for the staff that sit on the panel. And so partner Dina Harrison has been working with us on that, and she is phenomenal at her turnaround time. So it's totally dependent on who the person is and what their other obligations are. As far as Fagan Freeman and Full Frost, I think Matt typically is utilizing them having to do with property and facilities. They're very responsive as well. So it just depends. And that's the best I can give you as an answer, because I don't have a timeline that I've kept, but I can reference that there have been times recently that we have had to ask for documents to be completed.
I'm concerned that when we pay in, my mother always says you can't pay people and beg them to. So if we've made a commitment as a district that we're going to compensate a law firm for their services, and they drag their feet to be able to give us the service, and they still bill us for them to be able to drag their feet. No matter what service they're giving us, it's time to let that go. It's like, obviously you don't think that what we're asking of you as a law firm deserves your time. And so the way I look at it is, maybe they need to find other company, because this is not a good company for us. When I looked at number 26, I do recall that last year I was very opposed to it, because I kept saying this is like paying somebody to fly in from Oakland to come and give us service. And we live in San Bernardino County. There will be, I'm sure there's somebody that can meet that requirement without having to add the cost.
Which is exactly why we went with Adkins and Andelson,
Yeah.
Dina Harrison. So
Okay.
Yeah.
But there was another law firm that I was told we had approved. And I know that we have quite a few law firms. This is not it.
right. So what this is the updated fee schedules. It's not approving the law firms. It's our updated fee schedules. And we probably have one other that Matt can check with Michael. If they don't send us an updated fee schedule, it's typically because we haven't been utilizing them for anything, and they're not, the fee schedule is based on, we don't pay them ahead, we pay them after the service has been provided. Yeah. So there is no encumbrance to a budget on this or anything like that.
Okay. And none of these law firms typically represent the board, do they?
Actually, all of the law firms represent the school district and hereby represent the board. So
Okay.
The issues that occasionally happen, and so we're fortunate that we have more than one legal firm that we can utilize, is in the recent past, it's been several years ago, but not so far back. I was, I believe, the superintendent at the time. We did deal with a conflict of interest in an expulsion case that went to appeal at the county level. And while we were being represented by one of the legal firms that was listed here, the county also utilized that legal firm, and they would not allow us to continue. They believed it was a conflict of interest for the legal firm, even though it was different attorneys. Fortunately, Maggie Chichester stepped in and took our case for us. We were successful with that case appropriately, but had we not had others to rely on, we wouldn't have been able to prevail.
All right. I have all my questions answered.
I do have a something to add to agenda item number 25. It is my opinion, in light of the events surrounding the investigation launched against me, that the lead attorney that we've been utilizing as a district, Mark Thompson, needs to be changed. I know we deal with that law firm, but at this point in time, I do not feel safe being represented by him, how that situation was handled. Is that something that we discuss as a board, or?
Actually, that's a closed session discussion that has been brought up again in public session. I think there's some misunderstanding, and I would rather not have a continued discussion about a specific situation that is an interpretation of what occurred rather than what actually was the intent of that. And while I'm not privy to all of the details, I would like to just shut that conversation down right here because it would not be appropriate to continue that here.
So that item would just be the fee schedule.
That's correct.
change. It's not like the actual attorney.
Okay.
I understand that there may be some reservations with some of this, especially with number 25, but I recognize the importance of our attorney services, and I'm comfortable moving forward with approval at this time.
So is that a motion?
Are there any other comments or questions? No?
I don't have any questions. I have my questions all answered. Thank you.
So I'd like to suggest that we approve item 9, 11, 25 through 28 as one motion. Would anybody disagree to that?
Can we take it one at a time just to be safe?
We can.
Okay.
Okay, consent item number 9. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'm a second.
Okay. All right, roll call vote. Mrs. Tucker,
Aye.
Mrs. Longshore,
Aye.
Ms. Okpara,
Aye.
Mrs. Buchanan, aye. Mr. Raleigh.
Aye.
Okay, and in regards to consent item number 11, can I get
So moved.
A second.
any discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote via roll call. Mrs. Tucker,
Aye.
Mrs. Longshore,
Aye.
Ms. Okpara,
Aye.
Mrs. Buchanan, aye. Mr. Raleigh.
Aye.
Mrs. Okpara, would you be okay with us doing 25 through 28 since it's all the same?
Yeah, but this is why I think it, because there was so much argument on 25.
Okay, let's
but
go
you
ahead and
can-
start
I
with
just
item
wanna be sure.
25. Can I get a motion to approve 25?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, we'll take,
None that has already been said.
okay, we'll take the vote via roll call. Mrs. Tucker,
Aye.
Mrs. Longshore,
Aye.
Ms. Okpara,
Aye.
Mrs. Buchanan, aye, and Mr. Raleigh.
Aye.
So you can do the rest now.
Okay, items 26, 27, and 28 as a group. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we'll be taking a vote via roll call. Mrs. Tucker,
Aye.
Mrs. Longshore,
Aye.
Ms. Okpara,
Aye.
Mrs. Buchanan, aye. Mr. Raleigh.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Future items. Do any members of the board have any future items?
Not me.
I do.
Okay,
I would like to request an information item be added for a board presentation of FCMAT's FHRA. In the paperwork, it did state we would have to directly request them present their information to the board. I don't know when they're going to complete that, but I would like to request that an information item be placed on our agenda when it is finished.
okay, would that be a, just so I know for sure, is that a public or a confidential?
It would be public.
Okay.
Publicly, so we should get it public.
Right, I just didn't know if that was something that we could address publicly. Are there what's the consensus of the board? Is everybody good with that?
I'm fine with it.
Mr. Raleigh, are you okay with that? The presentation of
Sure.
FICMAT when it's, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so that's consensus. All right.
I would also like to request that an action item be added to the agenda items. I would like to, as I stated earlier, hear from the community in regards to open enrollment in our district. I would like to give a forum for the community to come and share their thoughts as far as our movement, either in response to everything that's been said. So equity across high school campuses in direct relationship to open enrollment. I think it's time to hear and make a decision on that.
So let me be sure I have an understanding, because I want to be sure that does that mean that when the community comes to participate in this, that we're going to change our board policy, because we do have a current board policy in place.
I would think it would just be a chance for the community to give their input to this. I brought it up as a discussion. I presented information. I think it would be prudent for the board to hear from the community in regards to this topic and their input, being able to gather their input as a board, I think is essential in our positions as decision makers in the community and speaking on behalf of the community.
So that would not, the way you're describing it, that would not be an action item because it's not really something to vote on.
I think that
But-
there are some potential impacts that before you bring the community together to ask their opinion, you might want to understand the impact to a master schedule and the facilities on a campus that have to do with our classroom class size caps, our A through G requirements for students, inclusive of any of the coursework that would be required for a student to meet those graduation requirements. Depending on the school and the type of credentials they hold on that campus will impact annually based on either an English, potentially a science, math, what they have capacity for. And so that would be a moving target. The Open Enrollment Act is very different than it was many years ago. And so that addresses not just open enrollment for an intra-district transfer. Open enrollment really refers to the inter-district transfer process of students coming from outside the district into the district. And so I want to be very sure that we have addressed whatever the needs of the board are as far as what our capacity limits are, how we decide those annually before we bring the community in and have them believe that we can potentially open enroll or transfer students from wherever they choose to go within the district. Because I think we would have quite a group that would be unhappy when we don't do what, they're asking us potentially to do. And then what do we do with families that enroll, come to the school as a student that actually belongs in the attendance area and then can't attend because there's not space for them? So we deal with that at the elementary already, and it is very difficult. And so to do that at the high school level where we have a master schedule that really does not allow us to combo classes and do those types of things, it is quite a heavy lift. And I think we should be having, if the board wants to go down this pathway, we ought to be very precise as to what those steps are before we jump into community input when we don't know that we can actually do anything different than we're currently doing.
I would definitely be interested in a continued discussion on this. I do want to pass down just information packets for fellow board members regarding district transfers and our responsibility as board members to set policy that allows for a discussion of this and setting policy for our district. I am open to the process that it would take to not only gather information of what it would mean to take steps in a direction other than what we have maintained the past many, many years. I understand it's complex. I'm more than happy to add it as a continued information item if that is something that we would like to look at more details of before we invite the community.
So I do not support us bringing this item up again or bringing it forward again. I'm not sure how the rest of the board feels. I know we do need to operate as one. And if the rest of the board would like to continue this conversation of open enrollment and what Mrs. Longshore refers to as the equity across schools, then I will go with it. But on my own, I think we've had this discussion multiple times, and I do feel like the way it is currently is working, albeit not for Mrs. Longshore's son, but we do want to make sure that we can accommodate, like she said, all the students within that enrollment area of that school, and opening it may cause unintended consequences that are much worse for us to deal with. Mrs. Akpara, how do you?
Could I point out that as far as bringing up my son, I think that would have been a closed session item and definitely a personal item for me. The only information I offered was that of my daughter.
Okay, Ms. Akpara, how do you, would you like to bring it up again on the next meeting?
As a matter of fact, I think just hearing all of this, I think if we're going to have any discussion, we should leave it with the cabinet to decide how they want to proceed. And if they believe that the community needs to get involved, they'll just let us know. But I don't think it's a board. Now we're doing the how. I think we need to do the what and stay in our lane. That's how I see it.
Okay. Mrs. Tucker, how do you feel?
I definitely think that there's more information because we're hearing concerns and we're looking at it from one perspective. But I do think that there's a lot as far as with master schedule and facilities and credentialing that we don't have access to that information. And I think that would be helpful perhaps to have some of that information from our superintendent, our cabinet, to the board. I'm not necessarily sure if that needs to be in a board meeting, but perhaps some communication. I think there's a lot of passion on this issue and concern for our students that want specific programs at specific schools, but we want to make sure that we're able to do this. I mean, right now we're concerned with ensuring a strong fiscal district. And I think we need to have information in order to make informed decisions on that. And I don't think we should make promises that is going to lead us down at some point where we're struggling with serving our students. So maybe getting some more information for board members might be helpful, is my thought.
And I would just like to point out, since it was brought up, this discussion that we're having as a board, this information I'm providing to our board, to our cabinet, to you as a public, this is in not advocacy for my own children. I gave my reflection as a mother. I think that offers me unique perspective as a board member, as I speak on your behalf, my children are on the train and in the schools that they are going to be in until they decide otherwise. I speak on behalf of the public. I speak on behalf of parents, my constituents that have expressed concern. I bring this up as an item to reflect on because I, as a member of this board, want to hear and want the best for our students.
Mr. Raleigh, would you like to have this item be placed on another board agenda to discuss?
No, but I will say, in my 6.5 years on the board, I never recall a parent or parents coming to a board meeting and discussing this item or having any issues or complaints about this. And I believe, it is Trustee Longshaw's right to keep discussing it if she wants to bring it up under board member comments. I mean, she's more than her right to do that, to keep it in the limelight. There's also her right to go speak to the public on her own time out in her, during her off hours. And if she believes that it's an issue, she should have those parents come and speak. But to agendize it on an issue that I've never heard a complaint until Trustee Longshaw brought this up, I would be opposed to moving forward with it as an official agenda item.
Okay, thank you.
Do we vote on agenda items being added?
We just give consensus to the superintendent.
So there was 3, no.
Or not supportive.
I would also like to propose that we have added on closed session agenda the superintendent evaluation and goals.
That would naturally occur in August because that's when we would set them for the upcoming year, correct? Okay.
Yeah, my contract indicates that prior to the first day, I provide the board, first day of student attendance, that I provide the board with a draft set of goals. So it'll start being brought forward in August if Jan Gonzalez is available to come back in for that first meeting for the goal setting. That's our goal.
All right, anything else? There being no further business to come before the Board of Trustees, it is recommended that the meeting be adjourned. I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All right, and we'll go ahead and take a roll call vote. Mrs. Tucker?
Aye.
Mrs. Longshore?
Aye.
Ms. Akpara?
Aye.
Mrs. Buchanan, aye. And Mr. Raleigh?
I vote aye, and everybody have a great summer.
You too. All right, I'm going to close this meeting at 4:22.